All right, so now let's head to the crypto space and see what's going on there. And from the corner of my eyes, I can see it's not a very pleasant one at this time. Leads me, of course, to the conversation that I'm going to have later. Bitcoin is down again, lost 0.06%. Its dominance has also reduced from 48% to close to 48%, but 47.87. Struggling, really struggling to get back to that 30,000. And I think just a couple of months ago, we had Bitcoin at 32,000, and we didn't know that it will go down this much. Ethereum is also following suit. It's now $1,837.17. That's down marginally 0.02%, but 0.02% can be a lot of money. And right here, it's more of red. But let's go in there and see the details of it. There you see the price there, still that 29 for Bitcoin. Ethereum is also 1,834. USD is down as BNB. Cardano is down, and XRP, I mean, maybe it's profit taking after some of those gains that it had, you know, over the case that it has with SEC, and it seems like it's winning a little bit now. It's losing all of that. Let's go now and see the top gainers for the day, at least for this morning. Not very impressive looking numbers. We can see XDC up just about 6.4%, Dash 4%. You know, you don't see anyone exceeding that. I think that XDCs are the highest that we can see at this time at $0.07. But let's see if we have joining us to kind of explain. Eliman Dambell now joins us. Eliman, good morning. But what's going on with Bitcoin? And there's also the talk about volatility explosion in Bitcoin. Has it started already?
Yeah, no, good morning. And yeah, no, I think what we see happening, and you rightly mentioned it, or someone referred to it as far as what we saw, I don't know, a few weeks ago with Ripple, and it had that explosion, and how that explosion somewhat transferred into the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the rest of the other altcoins. And yeah, since then we have seen a lot of profit taking, and volatility has somewhat been flat in the last few weeks. And as well, we're seeing traders react to what we see happening in the US. So, of course, over the last few days, we saw non-farm payrolls released less than expected. We're seeing a lot of equities somewhat outperform expectations as far as their Q2 earnings. So markets are reacting to that dollar story as well. So traders seem to be more focused on that market now, and with cryptos, it does seem like it is a lot of consolidation for the meantime. Yes.
So at this rate now, because last week we saw miners saying they will need Bitcoin to be at 98,000, you know, for the halving and all of that. At this rate, do you see Bitcoin hitting that 98,000? What will happen to the miners?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that possibility does exist in that regards. But just kind of looking at the technicals as well, I think once we see, and I think there is a strong possibility, just going back to the price, for it to cross that 30K level. And I think once it does, especially I'm looking at the charts now, looking at the 10-day moving average and the potential for that to cross over the 25-day. I think once that happens, the situation in terms of the miners and other fundamentals could lead to Bitcoin essentially going to 32K. So I think that the overall target for Bitcoin bulls at the moment is 32K, and it's just a case of the road to that level seems to be very volatile.
Can it be artificially manipulated? For instance, let me give you an example. In the global oil space, we know two giant oil producers, Saudi Arabia and Russia, they cut their production, and that, of course, has pushed the price up. Can it be manipulated in that way, Bitcoin?
Not necessarily. I think that's of course, with OPEC, like what we saw with Saudi and Russia, again, coming together and deciding to lower output. With Bitcoin, you don't have central party. So there isn't a de facto leader as Saudi Arabia. So that possibility doesn't exist to the same extent, to answer your question.
All right. Because I was just wondering how we can go from struggling with 29,000, 28,000 to 98,000, and that's supposed to be next year, But anyway, there's also this news about Huobi and companies, public companies connected to the crypto, releasing a lot of fantastic earnings at this time. Could you let us in on that?
Yeah, no, I think in general, what we're seeing out of the US, last week we saw, Apple and Amazon come out with better than expected earnings. The week before that, we saw Meta and Microsoft come out with similar numbers. So in general, we're moving away from the narrative of potentially entering a global recession or a recession in the US. And I think now we're starting to see more optimism on that side of defense. And when we do see strong equities, typically that does increase the strength of the dollar. And what we are seeing is a bit of a correlation between the equities, the dollar, and now the price of Bitcoin, where traders and investors seem to be essentially going where the opportunity is. So traders seem to be flowing towards those markets because those markets are where the action seems to be. And I think for now, Bitcoin is essentially the calm before the storm. That's the best way to describe what's happening with cryptos at the moment. The calm before the storm. But typically, we do see towards the end of August, beginning of September, there is a lot of volatility in Bitcoin. So I think that's what traders should be looking forward to.
And I guess the issues around Binance by different countries now will only add to that volatility.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we saw with the SEC and Ripple, for example, that gave a lot of optimism to the space, to the likes of Binance, to the likes of Coinbase, and that they can overcome some of their own issues. So I think there's a lot more optimism than there was, let's say, a month ago prior to the Ripple ruling. So I think there is some optimism. And again, those issues will always come, similar to what we saw a few months ago when a lot of crypto exchanges were going out of business and things of that nature. And we saw the quote-unquote global banking crisis, but that came and went, and markets have still essentially remained at the same levels to where they were before. So I think there's a lot more optimism than pessimism in the space as of now.
I guess that optimism can lead some risk-hungry investors to get on board the crypto space.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think now, if you're looking at it relative to where it was, a year, 2 years ago when it was trading over 40K, traders are looking at this as a perfect opportunity to quote unquote buy the dip. You aren't seeing that reflect in the prices of yet because, again, it does need some fundamentals to go its way, and I think markets are just waiting for that next fundamental. We saw a glimpse of it with what happened with Ripple, and I think now there's again storm before the calm before the storm, waiting for that next move.
Okay, just before you step on your thought, before we let you go, man, tell us what's going on with XRP. We did see XRP losing about 5%. I know they were glorying. Is it profit taking or is it the issues with SEC again? XRP.
No, yeah, with Ripple, what we saw with XRP, that initial move, of course, initially it was profit taking. Just to quickly answer your question, initially it was profit taking, but just going back to what happened around that ruling, it was a win in the moment. So it wasn't a grand win. There are still some issues to be resolved, and we are seeing traders essentially react to that. So traders were buoyant initially, but now you are seeing somewhat the fall back to reality. So it's still trading above the pre-ruling levels, so it hasn't been full profit taking as of yet. But and it does look, I'm just looking at the RSI now for Ripple as well. So it's heading to oversold territory. So I wouldn't be surprised if it lands on a floor of around 50 cents. And I think from there is where we could see traders begin to buy again.
All right, finally now, where do you see Bitcoin ending this week? As you see a recovery?
I do see it potentially breaking 30K. Of course, it depends on what happens with the inflation number coming out of the US. I think that's the headline target for this week in terms of traders paying attention to in terms of economical data. So depending on what happens this coming Wednesday with inflation, I do see Bitcoin potentially going back above 30K.
All right, we'll look forward to that and see how the market reacts. Thank you so much, Ali Mandambel, our technical analyst this morning, for your views.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. All right, so there we see. We hope that the inflation numbers will favor Bitcoin. That's for investors of Bitcoin or in the crypto space generally. But we've seen earnings from companies related or connected to cryptocurrency making good records for half of the year. So who knows? With all of the ban on Binance and the risks connected to all of it, it seems some people just want to go headlong and like, yeah, let's face the risk and make some money. Well, that's a wrap on the program this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of this 55 minutes. I hope it's been informative, giving you current and relevant business conversations right here. And then we'll do it again tomorrow, God's grace. But I'll see you at 1:30 for Business Incorporated. By then, we'll have some updates from the world of business. So Business Incorporated will give that to you. I'll see you. For now, do have a good day and make some money.